Well, let's just get into it. Let's talk about Ohio State. Or, sorry, Notre Dame, Penn State. Notre Dame, Jeremiah Love. What's the deal? Right? Hurt his same knee that he hurt in USC, right? Just a couple weeks back. His lines, right, for prop bets, if you're looking at prop bets, 36.5 rushing yards. If that tells you what Vegas thinks about his health, okay? Because I don't particularly think it's great. I know Marcus Freeman has said that he's going to suit up and that he's going to play, quote unquote, ready to go. Yeah, whatever that means. I mean, we saw Jadarian Price look awesome, by the way, in the second half of that Georgia game. Why wouldn't you just ride with him? You know, uh, I think this game's going to get very physical. I do think missing Riley Mills is a big deal, though, for Notre Dame, right? I mean, I know Notre Dame kind of held up that run game against Georgia, but the reality is, like, I think Penn State might be able to run the ball on this Notre Dame front. Like how many teams have we seen really test Notre Dame's front seven in terms of being able to run the ball very effectively, or as effectively as Penn State has been able to do this year? Especially in the last month of the season, Penn State's just been pounding the rock with Nick Singleton and Katrin Allen and Drew Aller. Once again, guy taking care of the football. Something that Gunnar Stockton didn't do, right? So I mean, when I'm looking at this Penn State team, I think this is a Penn State team that I don't think they're the best team in the country, but I think as far as matchups are concerned, I think this is the best matchup that Penn State could have been put in front of, right? Like, I think they match up well with this Notre Dame front seven. I think Drew Aller takes care of the football, which is in their favor. I think defensively, right, if Abdul Carter's healthy, right, and we saw him go down in the first quarter of that game, if he's healthy, Abdul Carter, that speed is going to be pretty lethal, right? We saw Riley Leonard get impacted at times. Overall, Notre Dame offense line did a good job, and they have done a good job pretty much all season keeping him upright. But I don't know, man. Some negative plays here, they're forcing Notre Dame in third and longs, which they're not good at. I think could cause some serious issues for Notre Dame.
Yeah, how many scoring drives were like long? I'm gonna drive the football down the field and put it in the end zone against Georgia. We didn't see it. We saw him settle for some field goals. We saw him, struggle in the red zone, whatever it may be. Yeah, it's something to absolutely consider. I also want to go back to Notre Dame in terms of who have they seen with this kind of running back duo, with this kind of offensive line play right now, the way that they're playing right now, as also like the quarterback in Alar. I know it wasn't perfect against SMU, wasn't perfect against Boise State, but he's a damn good quarterback, and you've got some players to take advantage, right, that are just mismatched nightmares. And I'm talking about Tyler Warren, right? He's a guy that nobody has been able to cover. It doesn't matter if you're right there. And I know Notre Dame has some freak athletes, some really good football players, very smart football players in their secondary, and obviously they'll do their best. But Tyler Warren is a different kind of beast. I go all the way back for Notre Dame, you know, back when you played Louisville, right? When was that? October, right? Early September or end of September. Much different football team back then. You also had Tyler Shuck and Isaac Brown, right? But this is before Isaac Brown really kind of took hold of that backfield there for Louisville. And he's also a true freshman. You've got two true juniors there. Very, very talented players in Katron Allen and Nick Singleton for Penn State to lean on. Absolutely. When I was breaking down this game and thinking about it, I was just kind of going through the list, like, who's got the best head coach? And I'd give an edge here to James Franklin. I want to hear your thoughts on that. Who's got the better quarterback? And obviously, it's Penn State there. Who's got the best player? And it's probably Tyler Warren, right? If not Abdul Carter, if he's healthy, right? And who's also like the genuinely like healthier team right now? It's Penn State. And at that point, I'm like, why is Notre Dame favored? And obviously, it's because what they've done, who they've beaten, how they've been playing. Obviously, the Georgia game bumped them up pretty well, but I just worry about that and the style of play they have done to win these games and that being consistent. I took Georgia last week. Didn't work out for me. Obviously, if I had to pick it again, honestly, I wouldn't feel too crazy about it. I'd probably pick Georgia again, which is, obviously credit to Notre Dame and what they did. It's a huge, huge win for that program. But I'm going to go Penn State here. And you're giving me plus 1.5. Obviously, if we picked it earlier this week, it'd be higher, 2.5 there. But I'll take the 1.5 there. I just think a lot of the ways that this game is going to break down, Penn State's going to be almost in like a comfortable spot. I think if you've got a shootout here, I trust Penn State, right? With their quarterback play right now, I think if you've got a low scoring game, I trust Penn State, what they can do running the football, right? And I think all these things kind of add up to, I think Penn State gets it done here. And obviously, they've won 2 playoff games. Hats off to them. But it's a different caliber win when you're playing against this Notre Dame football team in the semifinals. This Orange Bowl win would mean a whole heck of a lot for this program and for James Franklin. Kind of get the monkey off his back, you know, in the big game, James Franklin and all that, the hate he's gotten for, not beating Ohio State, not beating Michigan, not beating Oregon, blah, blah, blah. And here he has a chance here to win and to win huge and to put himself in a chance to win the title. I'll go Penn State plus 1.5 here.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% for all those reasons. I also think like Penn State gets knocked for how they got here, right? Like they beat SMU, who by the way I think is a pretty good football team, right? I do. They beat Boise State, which people didn't give them a lot of credit for, right? So like you look at Notre Dame's win against Georgia, and honestly, look between you and me, I mean, I picked Notre Dame to beat Georgia. You picked Georgia to beat Notre Dame. But if I was to do it again, right, if they were to play again and suit up again, okay, I would have a hard time picking against Georgia with the way I saw Gunnar Stockton look. It was a turnover on a strip sack that turned into a touchdown the next play, and a kick return touchdown was the difference in the game right there. It was completely different because then also Georgia's approach inside the 40-yard line of Notre Dame was completely different when you're down multiple scores. So like I thought Georgia, while Notre Dame played mistakeless football, right? I thought Georgia still. I think Georgia is probably a better team than Notre Dame, realistically. So I do give Notre Dame credit for beating a football team that's probably better than them, and would be one of the better remaining teams, right? Of the four teams that are remaining, right? So I do got to give them credit for that, for making mistake-free football. But also Penn State does very similar things where they don't make a lot of mistakes, right? They take care of the football. Okay, they force those turnovers. They generate negative plays. They don't have a lot of negative plays of their own. And like you said, the coaching matchup, I'm with you on James Franklin. Okay, I think the quarterback advantage goes to Drew Aller in Penn State, even though Riley Leonard is a gamer. Okay,
Yeah, I have to preface that real quick. Like, it's gonna come back to haunt me because Leonard's a guy that you just don't love to bet against because he is like what he does, like elevating people. You just don't see it in terms of like this guy is nothing he does is special other than just like his play. Like it's just
people get
special.
excited playing next to him. Like people love playing with him, you know. So yeah, I respect him a lot. He is a gamer. I think he's a guy that definitely has earned his stripes, you know, being the quarterback at Notre Dame. However, like I said, James Franklin, better coach. Drew Aller, better quarterback. I think the running back advantage with Jeremiah Love getting hurt goes to Penn State. I think the wide receiver advantage is with Penn State. I think the tight end advantage is with Penn State. Yes, I said it. I said I think the wide receiver advantage is with Penn State. Now, with the emergence of Jordan Faison, okay, if you were to flip these wide receiver cores, you know, like Notre Dame hasn't been, those receivers haven't really been given a ton of chances to shine, if you really argue that. So I could see the argument saying, hey, Notre Dame's wide receivers are probably better, but we just haven't been able to see them shine, right, with Riley Leonard there at quarterback. So I get that argument. That's fine. Someone wants to think that. But defensively, on defensive line, I think up front, Penn State is more talented on the edge. I think at that linebacker level, depends how you feel about that. And then the secondary, Notre Dame's been injured, right? So, and I guess Penn State to some degree, right? Losing a guy pretty early in the season at safety. But I just think offensively, Penn State is magnitudes better than this Notre Dame team. So I'm with you, man. I'll take Penn State plus 1.5, and we'll probably see that again later on the best bets.
Yeah, for sure. I want to go back to that wide receiver core in the way that you put it. I think Notre Dame has a better wide receiver core, but Penn State, because of the way that they play offense, Notre, Penn State's wide receivers will have a greater outcome, impact on this game than per se Notre Dame's. Right? Like if Notre Dame's don't receivers don't play great, yeah, Notre Dame could struggle for sure. But I also think with the way Riley Leonard's playing right now, their defense, like there are avenues for them to win. I think Penn State though, you'd feel a whole heck of a lot better if you are able to get Drew Allard going and get him going early. Also, I want to bring up here too. We've seen a couple explosive plays for Notre Dame here in these games, and historically, and if you go back throughout the season, that's not something they have been great at least like a lot. You've seen explosive plays lead to big touchdowns, but like consistently having 10+ yard plays, they are not even top 50, right? They are struggling in that aspect. You look at Penn State and what they do defensively, they're very good at stopping that. They're a top 20 team. Really, really nice to see that. And then also the reason why you bring in Andy Kotelnicki, this is our we do it every time we talk about Penn State, right? We got to give him love because we've been talking about that since the offseason. That's exactly why you need to be subscribed. You need to like and share because we talk about these things. These are huge hires that happen that can be difference makers for these programs. And you're seeing it with Andy Konicki. You're seeing Drew Alar play better football. But what you're seeing is explosive plays, not only in the air, but also in the run game that you've been missing. And that's going to be something that's key. They are top five, right, in 10 plus yard scrimmage plays for Penn State. That is so awesome. And in a game like this, stingy defense, you have a tight line, a low total, blah, 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 all these athletes all over the field. Like those explosive plays are huge difference makers, especially with the way Notre Dame plays, right? What they do, bend but don't break, and obviously turnovers and run the football. If you can get them down early and get them pressing, get them out of their game, out of their element, just like they did to Georgia in that second half, flipping the script on them, you can have a whole heck of a lot of success. I don't think that's the only way, but I do see Penn State, if they do that, that could be a huge boost for them in this Orange Bowl. Um, I do want to ask you though, like this coaching matchup, right? Not only at the head coaching level, but I'll go a step below and the coordinator level. I think is one that is super intriguing. You've got Denbrock and Golden for Notre Dame, the offensive defensive coordinator respectively, and then for Penn State, you got Tom Allen, defensive coordinator, and like I said, Andy Kolnicki, the offensive coordinator. These are some of the better coordinator duos in college football. Not only do you have Franklin and Marcus Raymond dueling at it, but you've got those guys, chess pieces. It's going to be sensational. I do worry for Notre Dame that you have a really good coaching staff on Penn State's side, and you give them 2 extra days to prepare and sit down and watch that Georgia game. I do wonder what they could come up with, right? As opposed to Notre Dame having a little bit shorter time. I know it's 7 days, which is great, so you can kind of like get back in your rhythm, and it's almost like a regular game week, right? And so you're kind of like, Sundays or Saturdays, Monday, whatever it may be, but it's something to absolutely note, I think, and we'll see. I think early on, potentially with how Notre Dame and with how Penn State come out, what kind of schemes they're running defensively, offensively, and we can maybe get a sense early on in this game, like, oh, this team really came prepared. They saw something on film. Maybe the extra days of help, maybe the extra days of rest did help them.
Yeah, I think Al Golden is a severely underrated coordinator. I'll also give flowers to Marty Biaggi, the special teams coordinator for Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Last week, it was a big impact, but also Marty Biaggi, like as a resume, like from his career, from a standpoint when he was at Purdue, the things that he did, All Americans at special teams, All American kickers, punters. How about the return game there for several years with a couple of those guys back there? Um, Rondale Moore. I mean, like Marty Biaggi has a pretty solid resume. He might have only overlapped with Rondale Moore like 1 year, in the year that like Rondale Moore got hurt, but still, Marty Biaggi's got a solid resume, dude, and I think he's done a pretty good job with the special teams. I think Mitch Jeter, though, if you're gonna count on him to make a kick like the three big ones that he made last week, I don't know, right? Mitch Jeter, you brought him in because he was a good kicker, right? And it just didn't happen for him this year, but maybe something's changed, right? But if you need him to kick three 40-yard field goals again to win this game, I would struggle to see that he makes all of those.
It's hard. It's hard to count on that. It's like turnovers too. Like the variance is just so dramatic, and like the point values. Like you have a chance to go up 3 points here, and it's just like that. It's gone. Now the other team has the ball going the other way. Really interesting. I do want to ask you this real quick. So we saw Notre Dame beat Georgia, right? And honestly, what I was impressed by them too was like the physicality that they matched and the way that they tackled really well, right? And they also broke tackles, right? And you saw some push and some movement on the offensive and defense lines. And you also saw like coaching, like big boy coaching from these coordinators and these head coaches and different things that they were doing throughout the game to get Georgia maybe off of their game. Like I think we can kind of agree that we think Georgia would probably beat Penn State, right?
I mean, they would certainly be favored,
Be
even
favored.
after last week's result, for sure.
Yeah, thank you. We have Gunnar Stockton, so it's just so interesting that like, and I want to remind people again that like college football has so much variance and like matchups matter so much and like certain things like in a game that is scored by threes and sevens with like an oblong football, like stuff can go crazy and like the transitive property that we all learned in middle school and elementary school math does not exist in college football. You can't just say if this, then that, right? So much happens. And this is why we think this angle here for Penn State, even though they're not favored, right? Even though we saw this Notre Dame team beat Georgia, right? I think you have to look almost a step deeper, a couple steps deeper, figure out the whys of why that happened, why it didn't happen for these respective teams. And we've been pretty good this bowl season. I will say we've been killing it with our picks, our bets, and obviously whatever else it may be. But it's been a lot of fun.